Have you ever witnessed a moment that changes everything in just a heartbeat? A single gesture that cuts through years of silence, regret, and distance. This is one of those stories, so keep watching till the very end. And if you love stories that touch your soul, like this video and subscribe to Gentle Words, so you never miss a new one. The rain was soft that night, the kind of rain that didn't soak you instantly but whispered like a memory. The city of Chicago glimmered with lights reflecting in the wet streets as expensive cars rolled up in front of the Grand Crown Hotel. Inside, the annual charity gala was in full swing. Music flowed through the air like silk. The clinking of champagne glasses and murmurs of wealthy donors painted a picture of elegance. And at the center of it all stood Vivian Hart, the woman everyone admired. Her black silk gown hugged her tall, graceful frame, a diamond necklace glittered at her throat, and cameras captured her every movement. She had built an empire out of nothing. Once a girl from a tiny South Side apartment, now a millionaire, strong, respected, and feared. People called her the Iron Lady of Chicago business. But behind that flawless smile, hidden beneath years of success, was a name she had buried deep: Marcus Bennett. 10 years. That's how long it had been since she'd seen him. 10 years since she walked out of their small home with tears in her eyes and fire in her heart. She had chosen ambition over love, telling herself it was the right thing. But sometimes, even the strongest people carry cracks beneath their armor. And tonight, she didn't know it yet, but the past she tried so hard to outrun was waiting for her just outside the ballroom doors. Vivian stepped onto the balcony for some air. The music faded behind her, replaced by the soft sound of raindrops on marble. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the cool breeze touch her face. For years, she'd convinced herself she was over it, over him, but a part of her had never truly forgotten Marcus. His warm laugh, the way he used to hold her when she doubted herself, the dreams they once shared before success became a wall between them. And then, she heard it, a soft, familiar voice. Vivian. Her eyes snapped open, her heart skipped a beat. She turned slowly, and there he was. Marcus, standing across the courtyard under the drizzle, wearing a simple black coat. His beard was a little fuller, his hair now had streaks of silver, but his eyes, oh, those eyes. The same steady, kind eyes she had fallen for when they were just two kids trying to make it in the world. Time had changed him, but it hadn't erased the warmth in his gaze. For a second, everything around her blurred. The rain, the lights, the sound of laughter behind her, it all faded. She was 22 again, standing on their old porch, saying goodbye to the only man who had ever truly known her heart. Marcus, she whispered. His name fell from her lips like a secret she'd kept too long. He gave a small, hesitant smile. "You look different," he said softly. "Good different." Vivian tried to laugh, but her throat tightened. "And you look older." They both chuckled, not because it was funny, but because they didn't know what else to do with the weight between them. "How have you been?" he asked, stepping a little closer. The raindrops glimmered on his coat. "Busy," she said, the word sharp and small. "Yeah," he nodded. "You always were." She swallowed hard. This was the man she'd loved fiercely, and left behind. "What are you doing here?" she asked finally, hugging her arms as if that would keep the past at bay. "I came for the gala," Marcus said, "but not for the champagne or the crowd. The foundation I work for, Southside Community Center, they're one of the beneficiaries." She blinked. "You work there?" He nodded. "Yeah, I've been there for a few years now, helping kids find a better path." Vivian felt something tug inside her chest. Marcus had once dreamed of being a musician, of performing in front of crowds. But seeing him now, grounded, steady, he looked like a man who had found his purpose in a different way. For a few seconds, silence wrapped around them. A silence not cold, but familiar. Then she noticed a small figure running toward him from the other side of the courtyard. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, with curly hair and bright eyes. He ran straight into Marcus's arms. "Daddy," he squealed. Vivian's heart stumbled. "Daddy." Marcus scooped the boy up effortlessly. "Hey, champ, told you I wouldn't be far." The boy looked at Vivian curiously. Marcus gently said, "Caleb, this is an old friend." "Hi," the boy said brightly, his innocence cutting through the heavy air. Vivian forced a trembling smile. "Hi, Caleb." In that moment, something inside her twisted. Of course he had a family. Of course life had moved on for him. She was the one who had chosen to leave. She was the one who had walked away from their shared future. But Marcus didn't flaunt anything. He didn't gloat, he just looked at her the way he always had. Like she was a part of a memory he couldn't hate even if he tried. Then, slowly, he set the boy down and pulled an envelope from his coat pocket. "I didn't come to ask for anything," he said carefully. "But I thought, maybe someone here would listen." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He handed her the envelope. Inside was a hospital photo. A young girl, no older than 12, with a bright smile but tired eyes. A name was scribbled at the bottom. Alani. Vivian looked up, confused. "She's my daughter," Marcus said softly. His voice cracked just slightly. "She's sick, leukemia. We need a bone marrow transplant. The insurance isn't enough. I thought maybe someone at your foundation could help." The air around her shifted. Vivian felt the weight of his pain like it was her own. This wasn't just a man from her past. This was a father fighting for his child's life. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she held them back. "Why didn't you call me?" she whispered. "Because this isn't about us," he said gently. "I wasn't even sure you'd want to hear from me." And he was right. 10 years of silence didn't exactly build bridges. But seeing him there, soaked in the rain, still standing tall, still holding on to hope, something inside her cracked open. She stepped forward, clutching the envelope tightly. "Marcus," he shook his head quickly. "Vivian, don't feel obligated. I didn't come to ask you. I just came here hoping someone might see her story." But he didn't understand. He didn't need to ask. She had made 1,000 deals in her life. Bought companies, crushed competitors, climbed every ladder. But this was the only deal that truly mattered. Without thinking, she closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then slowly, carefully, his arms came around her too. 10 years of distance collapsed in a single embrace. The cold, the rain, the noise. Nothing existed but the warmth of something that had never truly died. "I'll help," she whispered against his chest. "Vivian, you don't have to. I want to." She cut him off, pulling back just enough to look him in the eye. "Not because I pity you. Not because of guilt. Because I should have never stopped caring." His eyes searched hers, full of shock, pain, and something achingly familiar. In that moment, Vivian made a silent promise to herself. She would use every ounce of her power, every dollar in her bank account, to help Alani. Not because Marcus was her past, but because he had once been her everything. And maybe, just maybe, this was the universe's way of giving her a chance to make something right. As they stood under the rain, Caleb ran around them, giggling, unaware of the storm of emotions between the adults. For the first time in years, Vivian felt something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Not power, not control, but home. And she knew her life was about to change again, not because of wealth or ambition, but because of a little girl she hadn't met yet, and a man she'd never truly stopped loving. The story was just beginning. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Gentle Words. The next chapter will show how one woman's gesture can change everything. For a child, for a man, and for a love story that refuses to die. Have you ever felt your heart breaking and healing at the same time? When love that you thought was gone suddenly whispers, "I never really left." If you believe in second chances, stay with this story till the very end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. And hey, before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Gentle Words for more emotional stories like this. Rain fell softly against the hospital window. It had been 3 weeks since the night Vivian had seen Marcus again. 3 weeks of hospital corridors, late-night phone calls, and prayers whispered into the dark. The world outside still saw her as the untouchable businesswoman, Vivian Hart, the millionaire. But in here, she wasn't a CEO. She wasn't powerful. She was just a woman sitting in the corner of a pediatric oncology ward, holding the tiny hand of a little girl she'd only recently met. Alani Bennett, 12 years old, brave eyes, bright smile, fighting leukemia with the kind of courage only children seem to have. From the moment Vivian had walked into that hospital room, Alani had looked at her not like a stranger, but like someone she already trusted. Maybe it was the way Vivian knelt beside her bed, not in her usual heels but in simple sneakers. Maybe it was the way she listened. Or maybe it was because Alani saw something in her that Vivian had forgotten she had. A heart that still knew how to love. Marcus spent every night at the hospital, his head resting against Alani's bed frame as he told her stories to keep her laughing. Caleb came after school, making silly faces until his sister giggled through her pain. And Vivian. She spent her days pulling every string, talking to every doctor, signing every check necessary to make sure Alani had the best care possible. The transplant had finally been scheduled. A suitable donor had been found. But the surgery was risky, and even the best doctors couldn't promise anything. As the night before the operation arrived, Vivian found herself sitting in the hospital chapel, the first time she had ever been in one in years. The soft glow of candles danced against the stained glass, and for a moment, the woman who always controlled everything felt helpless. She clasped her hands together and whispered, "Please, let her live. I've lost enough. Don't let Marcus lose his child." Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned and saw Marcus. He didn't speak at first, just walked over and sat beside her. His shoulders were tired, his eyes rimmed with sleepless nights, but his presence still felt like home. "I didn't think I'd ever see you in a chapel," he said softly. She let out a shaky breath. "I didn't think I'd ever need to be here." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You've done so much already, Vivian. More than I ever expected." Her eyes flickered to him. "I didn't do this to prove anything, Marcus. I know," he said gently. "That's what makes it mean everything." For a moment, silence wrapped around them. Warm this time, not heavy. The kind of silence that happens when words aren't needed anymore. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly, surprising herself. He turned to her. "Regret what?" "Us," she whispered. "The way we ended." Marcus took a slow breath. "Vivian, I loved you. I never stopped, but I also understood why you left. You wanted the world, and you got it. I was just a guy with a guitar and a dream. We were on different paths." She swallowed hard. "I thought success would fill the emptiness. But the truth is, nothing ever did." Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to. The way he looked at her, soft, forgiving, said everything. The next morning, Alani was wheeled into surgery. Marcus kissed her forehead, whispering promises of ice cream and summer trips once she got better. Caleb clutched Vivian's hand, his small fingers trembling. And for the first time in years, Vivian felt fear the way she used to when she had nothing, raw and real. Hours passed. Long, brutal hours. Vivian stayed beside Marcus in the waiting area, neither speaking much. Sometimes their hands brushed, sometimes their eyes met, and in those quiet moments, they were just them again, not millionaire and volunteer, not ex-wife and ex-husband, just Vivian and Marcus. When the doctor finally emerged, the entire world seemed to stop breathing. His face was calm, tired, but his eyes held something, good. "The surgery went well," he said gently. "She's stable. It's going to be a long recovery, but she's strong." Marcus's knees almost gave out. He covered his face, sobbing with relief. Caleb jumped up and down, shouting, "She's okay. She's okay." And Vivian? She didn't say a word. She just walked to Marcus, knelt down in front of him, and took his shaking hands into hers. For the first time in 10 years, they cried together. Not because they'd lost something, but because they'd almost lost something too precious to imagine. Later that night, Vivian stood outside Alani's recovery room. Through the glass, she saw Marcus holding Alani's hand while Caleb curled up beside her bed. The soft beeping of monitors filled the silence. It was a fragile picture, but beautiful. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus turned, saw her standing there, and opened the door. "Come in," he said. Vivian stepped inside. Alani's tiny fingers twitched around Marcus's hand. Her lips were pale, but when she saw Vivian, a weak smile crossed her face. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came," Vivian said softly, sitting beside her. She brushed the little girl's hair from her forehead. "You're the bravest girl I've ever met." Alani closed her eyes, drifting back to sleep, her breathing steady. Caleb was already dozing off in a chair, and for a moment, it was just Marcus and Vivian again. "You saved my daughter," Marcus said suddenly, his voice breaking. "You saved my world." Vivian shook her head slowly. "No, Marcus, I just gave what I could. You're the one who's been her world all along." Marcus took a deep breath, stepped closer, and whispered, "You've changed." "No," she replied softly. "I just found the part of me I left behind." And then it happened. The gesture that would change everything. Vivian reached out and gently took his hand. Not with the desperation of the past, but with the quiet strength of a woman who had finally stopped running from her heart. Marcus didn't pull away. He didn't hesitate. His fingers closed around hers, steady and warm. That single touch carried 10 years of unspoken love, 10 years of regret, 10 years of what-ifs, melding away into something new. A second chance. Tears welled in Vivian's eyes, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from the strange, unexpected feeling of coming home. Outside the window, the rain had finally stopped. The night sky was clear. Vivian whispered, "I missed this." Marcus smiled softly. "I know." In that quiet hospital room, with 2 sleeping children and a love reborn from ashes, Vivian Hart, the millionaire, finally found something she couldn't buy with money: peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from forgiving herself and the man she never truly stopped loving. Sometimes, love doesn't need grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes, it only needs a hand reaching out in the silence. And that night, as Marcus squeezed her hand, she knew this was the start of something real again. If this ending touched your heart too, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Gentle Words for more emotional stories that remind us, love may fade, but it never truly dies.